Hi, good morning, everyone. I hope you've had a great weekend. Welcome to the kickoff event for the 14th Annual International Education Summit, and happy International Education Week. I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy during this time. My name is Michelle Harpenell, and I am the Executive Director with the World Affairs Council. Welcome to our first event of the week, the Journey to Justice Through Solar with Nathan Thomas, founder of Solarize Uganda Now, or SUN, as it is called. For those of you who don't know the World Affairs Council, I wanted to share with you briefly about our work. The World Affairs Council has been around since 1923, and our main mission is about increasing international understanding and cultural awareness. We focus on three main areas. First, we focus on how we can educate our students in the global sphere. We serve 7,000 kids in the area, ages 3, really little, all the way to adult. So we believe that everyone should be a continuous learner. The U.S. Department of State's premier exchange program. We bring in over 300 international visitors into town, now virtually. And in addition, we also bring these webinars so that our audience can get to know various foreign affairs topics that are going on throughout the world. We have a great week planned for you all on the theme of peace and justice. Given the current challenges we are facing as a nation, our working group believed that this was the best theme to focus on for International Education Week. Although this is not our typical event, usually, we invite about 200 high school students to Northern Kentucky University's campus to learn about one current foreign affairs topic, increase their awareness of careers in international affairs, and work together on a hands-on project. This year has been quite trying in many ways, though, for all of us, and I want to recognize that and say how I'm very impressed with how so many schools, teachers, my colleagues, nonprofits, and businesses have pivoted to continue doing great work and serving their communities. I am thankful we are here today with you in a new way as we here at the World Affairs Council strive to continue to deliver upon our mission and reach students, teachers, and our communities with innovative global programming. This year, of course, we are hosting our first virtual International Education Summit. Thanks to our regional World Affairs Councils in Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana, we have planned not one day, but 5 days of events on the theme of peace and justice. Not only will we be reaching more students throughout the region, but the world. And we have opened the events up to include teacher workshops, as well as community-wide events for all to enjoy. Now I'd like to take a minute to thank all of the people and our sponsors who make this week possible. First, I would like to thank our title sponsor, Northern Kentucky University. Northern Kentucky University is a growing metropolitan university of more than 14,000 students served by more than 2,000 faculty and staff on a thriving suburban campus near Cincinnati. Students at Northern Kentucky University improve themselves, then they improve the world. Without the continuous generosity of Northern Kentucky University, this week would not occur each year. Thank you to our supporting sponsors as well. The Brueggemann Center at Xavier University, Foreign Policy Leadership Council, Miami University Global Initiatives, and the University of Cincinnati. This week is free because of our wonderful sponsors. Thank you so much for making this possible. Again, we are also very thankful to have Nathan Thomas here today with us, who, when he was just 16, saw a way to serve his community by creating a nonprofit organization. I also want to thank our annual sponsors. I want to thank our partner organizations. And I want to thank also our marketing partners as well. A special thank you to the World Affairs Council's Global Education Advisory Council and Ohio Council for Social Studies, as well as Deborah Schultz, advisory member of the World Affairs Council, who has been on top of her game this year and has really helped us to think bigger about expanding our partnerships and reach in this community. It is always such a pleasure to work with you. I also want to thank Hannah Girth, our Global Education Manager. In her very first year as Global Education Manager, she's really had to pivot and engage in a whole new way. So that's really an amazing and impressive thing. And without you, we wouldn't be here today with an entire week's worth of events to serve our community. Your collaborative spirit has always inspired me, and this week has truly brought out your strengths. So thank you so much. I also want to thank James McManus, our Director of International Programs, who's behind in the logistics running events this week. Again, thank you to our title sponsor, Northern Kentucky University, and our supporting sponsors, the Brueggemann Center at Xavier University, Foreign Policy Leadership Council, Miami University Global Initiatives, and the University of Cincinnati. So just a little bit of housekeeping before we keep going. Your camera and audio is off. We cannot see or hear you. If you have any questions during the presentation and don't want to forget, please type them into the questions box at the bottom of your screen in the Q&A, which can be found in your toolbar. All questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. We will also accept questions using your mic. And at the end of the presentation, feel free to raise your hand by selecting the hand icon in the toolbar. So Hannah, if you don't mind starting the video in just a moment. So we have a short video for you to kick us off and get us thinking about this week's theme of peace and justice.
Peace and justice to me means giving equal access to the opportunities to thrive, to get a good education and job, to live in decent housing, to have good health care, and to have the freedom to participate fully in our country's unique expressions of civil society. It means living in a nation where human rights and dignity are for everyone, and they are respected and celebrated. It means honoring as distinctive strands our many cultures, and yet realizing that altogether they represent the most cherished values in the fabric that is our country.
Hi, my name is Samantha Searles, and I work for the Intercommunity Justice and Peace Center in Cincinnati, Ohio. To me, justice is a pathway to peace. When we create a world where our differences are embraced and we follow the lead of those who've been historically pushed aside, we will enter a time of peace, reconciliation, and community.
To me, peace and justice means to coexist with one another. Not just coexist, but to collaborate, encourage and support one another to do awesome things. That's true peace and justice. It's living in harmony with one another.
Those are some pretty beautiful and inspiring thoughts, and I encourage you throughout your week to think about what peace and justice means to you. Peace and justice means to me open hearts, open ears, open eyes. Peace is being open to hearing others' perspective, especially if they are different from you. Taking those thoughts into consideration and making more informed decisions that lead to greater understanding between people and cultures. That understanding and empathy, I believe, will lead to peace and insights into the base conflicts of the world where justice can live. Each individual story and the story of each country is not simple, but in many ways similar, and those similarities can lead to unity and peace. So again, I challenge you this week to think about that. What does peace and justice mean to you? I'm now excited to introduce our title sponsor, representative from our title sponsor, Northern Kentucky University, to share and also welcome you to this week. Please meet Northern Kentucky University's new Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, Daryl Peel, who will welcome you to the. Daryl Peel serves as Northern Kentucky University's inaugural Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer and Title Coordinator. In his role, he works to create and foster an inclusive and engaging campus climate and oversee Northern Kentucky University's diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. Daryl joined Northern Kentucky University from the National Collegiate Athletic Association. While at the NCAA, he served as the Managing Director for External Engagement and Strategic Partnerships. He was responsible for driving the inclusion and human resources vision and strategic initiatives through engagements and partnerships with the membership sponsors and external stakeholders. Peel has a long history in higher education, spending the first 11 years of his career at universities throughout Ohio. He has served as the Dean of Students, Director of Minority Student Affairs, Assistant Dean of Students, Coordinator of Ethnic Diversity, and much more. He earned his Master of Social Sciences from Ohio University and his Bachelor of Arts in Print and Broadcast Journalism from Ohio Wesleyan University.
So again, good morning. I'm Daryl Peel, the Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer at Northern Kentucky University. It's an honor, pleasure, and a privilege to be with you this morning to kick off the International Education Summit. The World Affairs Council of Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky hosts the International Education Summit each year during International Education Week. And for 14 of those years, Northern Kentucky University has been a proud supporter and ambassador sponsor of the International Education Summit. And while so many things have been postponed or canceled in 2020, we are so proud that you are hosting your first virtual International Education Summit on Peace and Justice and have expanded and will be hosting a week-long program. This is dedication, innovation, and expansion during these unprecedented and challenging times. As we gather today, it is essential and important that we all remember that we are global citizens and that we must become more familiar with the other global citizens who don't live in our country, but whom we share this planet with. We must never forget that we all have a role in our local communities and in our respective countries to collaborate with others who may not look like us, speak the same language, or who come from different culture. We must be laser focused on supporting efforts to make the world more peaceful, sustainable, and more just. I'm so excited that students are participating in such large numbers this year. It is essential that we all gain knowledge, appreciation, and understanding for all humanity around the world so we can live peacefully, engage authentically, and extend empathy and kindness. I encourage all the students to study abroad and or engage with people from other countries and cultures. When I think about my experiences traveling to other countries, I'm reminded of a quote from the poet Sonia Sanchez. She said, "In search of others, I found myself." And while I initially went abroad to explore and learn about others, the experience made me do a great deal of self-assessment. It made me challenge stereotypes and rethink what it meant to be part of a global community. The international study experience allows you to be immersed in another culture, and the experience allows you to explore and understand different ideas, values, beliefs, religions, and living and working in a different environment. Ultimately, engaging with other cultures provides an experience and opportunities for growth and development. In closing, I encourage all of you to attend as many sessions as possible and to embrace this incredible opportunity to learn from and hear from an incredible diverse group of speakers representing governmental, community, business, and nonprofit organizations as they explore the theme of peace and justice. And I leave you with one last quote from the poet Sonia Sanchez. She said, "I cannot tell the truth about anything unless I confess to always being a student, growing and learning something new every day. And the more I learn, the clearer my view of the world becomes."
I'm happy to introduce Nathan Thomas, who I met 7 years ago when he showed up at a meeting of my longtime Rotary Club in Cincinnati. He was then and is now brimming with enthusiasm to create meaningful projects to help people in need overseas. I think Nathan's story is particularly relevant now because of the climate challenged world we live in, and Nathan has some solutions to meeting that challenge. As we walked out of that meeting, though, little did we know that what we were starting was a journey that has helped thousands of people in rural Uganda, particularly students. Sun, Solarize Uganda now brings solar-powered LED lighting to rural Uganda, where electricity is inadequate, inexpensive, or non-existent. This partnership, formed through the foundation that Nathan established, All We Are, and aided by Rotary Clubs throughout the world and other sources as well, has lighted the way out of poverty through education at over 30 installations in schools and clinics in 5 years. Nate is a full-time mechanical engineer with the German company Leoni, working outside Raleigh, North Carolina. Simultaneously, he runs All We Are Sun with a team of young professional volunteers and senior advisors spread throughout the globe. Born in Toronto to parents from India, now a US citizen, he grew up in Findlay, Ohio. His engineering degree from the University of Cincinnati is from the University of Cincinnati. Nate is the past president of the Raleigh Midtown Rotary Club, and he will soon be a district governor overseeing 47 clubs for a year. At 28, that's pretty extraordinary. Nathan has accomplished a lot. A year ago, Nathan was accepted to an extraordinary program called One Young World. It's a conference past year in London, which brings together leaders from under 30 around the world, tackling some of the globe's most pressing problems. If some of you in the audience are looking for a role model for starting a highly successful nonprofit while juggling a demanding job or a university degree, Nathan Thomas is your man. He has brains, a useful profession, vision, global experience, cultural fluency, and drive. He knows what it takes to make progress, to take good ideas and weld them to planned action, and including great collaborators. Most of all, Nate has compassion and empathy, without which his inspirational leadership would not be so inspirational. He's willing to bring everyone he works with along with him and bring out the best in all of us. Ladies and gentlemen, Nathan Thomas.
Okay, thank you guys so much for this opportunity. I want to share my journey through the past 11 years working in international project management, running this nonprofit organization with the support of Rotary and so many others. This story started in 2009 as a high school student in Northwest Ohio. So I hope if you're a high school student listening to this presentation live, or perhaps at a later date, you see the potential of what you can do in your life and in your community with the help of great leadership. All we are, and with our major partner Rotary, we're on a mission to electrify 50 schools and health centers in Uganda by 2025. With incredible partners, we've been able to provide access to over 36,000 villagers all across the country. And I'll detail how we did it, but what you'll see is this project that started in 2015 to see this incredible growth to today, having over 30 installations completed in Uganda, and some exciting prospects for what's to come in the next 12 to 18 months. So all of you that are live right now, you're viewing the questionnaire, and what we're seeing is it looks like a lot of us were maybe in a similar position to where I was in 2009. And the answer to that question is, who wants to change the world? The answer to that question is I do, and we do want to make the world a better place. And so the challenge is often we don't know where we would want to start. So I think we're sharing the results right now, and it was 100% of people want to make the world a better place. And I think that's a good majority to be in. And I'll just close this poll and go to the next slide. So in this position in 2009, I asked a question: how do I make the world a better place? And how do I focus on something that's very personally important to me, which is education? And people often ask, why education, or perhaps why Uganda? And this story goes back to my childhood. So as I mentioned, I grew up in Findlay, Ohio, and was born in Canada, but my family's roots stem in southern India. And in 1999, as a 6-year-old, I had the opportunity to travel to Kerala for the first time. And while I was there, I think it sparked my curiosity for different cultures. And really, I had incredible gratitude for the gift of education. Kerala boasts the highest literacy rate in India, and a very strong educational foundation. And so, as a first generation American, I saw how different my life could have been, perhaps if I was born in a different part of the world. And this inspired me to give back and focus on solutions that help build education. And I think often as first generation Americans, we're driven, or we're led to automatically go back to the places closest to home. And I wanted to ask the question of, how do I go to the places that need my help the most, and help in those ways specifically? And so fast forward from 1999 to 2009, 10 years later, this search led me to reach out to several nonprofit organizations working around Uganda. Not Uganda, around Africa. I wanted to go where the need was the most, and I was passionate about taking my time, talents, and skills to use it to help people in need. Growing up in Northwest Ohio, in Findlay. As a high school student, we all were trying to make sure our applications for college looked the best they could, bolster our resumes for different things. And often as a requirement for National Honor Society or other commitments, we needed to volunteer in our local community. And if I'm being honest with you, often these volunteering opportunities were not ones that we were very passionate about. We would do things often begrudgingly to meet a scholarship requirement or to just get that signature on the paper that says we completed these many hours. And I knew the idea of service or volunteering should be personally meaningful as well. And I believe that would be possible if we could pair what we were passionate about with helping people in need. And so the idea for this project was born. I was a member of Junior Statesmen of America as a high school student, and was lucky to have an incredible advisor, Mrs. Judy Withrow, who I reached out to at the time, and who came back to me with a very positive response and belief in me, a young 16-year-old high school student who wanted to do a project that perhaps our community in Findlay, Ohio was not familiar with. And that confidence was incredibly important in me in starting this direction for this project and figuring out how do we take projects from just an idea and into implementation, and to be focused on that action and how incredibly important that was. And so with that, the idea for this Computers for Kampala project was born. with Mrs. Withrow and with my local community, I was able to collect computers. And so this is 2009. So if any high school students are on the line, what you're seeing there on the left, that actually is a computer. They were just a little bit bigger about 10 or 15 years ago. And so people were happy to give these computers to me. Many of them had them sitting in their house, and they were looking for a positive way to sort of pay it forward and get second life out of these devices. And so I'd fix them up. I'd work with the local community to raise money to send these computers to Uganda with this connection I created with an organization working there, and had this incredible opportunity to travel to Uganda in 2011 as a freshman at the University of Cincinnati. So that photo on the right, there's me actually in Uganda at this school. And so traveling to this country, traveling to this specific school was incredibly important to me. But one thing I quickly realized there was that energy in Uganda was unreliable. It was expensive, and in a lot of places it was not accessible. And so what I realized was it's much better for us as outsiders to ask local communities how we might be helpful than it is to assume that we know what's best for them. Computers were an important part of my life. It was an important part of how I learned in school. But perhaps halfway across the world, much more basic necessities should be our focus. And right there, I learned an important key, and that was the importance of listening to local communities, to ask how we might be helpful instead of assuming that we know what's best. And this is a concept that we continue to focus on every day. The importance of listening, two-way dialogue. These are sort of at the center of everything we do now today, 11 years later. We learned the importance of investing in local economies, which we'll touch on later, and the importance of building strong local partnerships and collaboration, and having people native to the countries you're working to be the face of your project. And so here's another photo from my trip to Uganda in 2011. You see me here with a new friend I met at the school, Brian Dibia. Brian grew up in Masaka district of Uganda. And he grew up in a very difficult situation. He was the last born in a 16-person family with 2 brothers and 11 sisters. And his father passed away in 1993 when he was just 3 years old. His uncle David, a teacher in Kampala, brought him from the village in Masaka to Kampala to attend his school. And finally, in early 2000s, Uncle David started his own school. And it would just happen that in 2007, a US-based NGO created a partnership with this school. And it was through this partnership that donors from America contributed funds that helped support Brian through secondary school and university. And it just happened that in 2009, the organization I reached out to was the very same organization working in this school. And so Brian would come back after graduation, after starting his career, to pay it forward, to teach students, to help the school in any way possible. And so him and I met, and he was an electrical engineer working for the local power company, and was obviously very interested in what I was doing there with computers. And so to fast forward from 2011 to today, Brian is still an incredibly important part of my life, and he leads our organization and our work on the ground. He's our chief country officer. He leads our team of installers that travel to each of our sites to do these installations, and then they follow up there every 3 months. And he also leads our admin and all the other efforts we have locally on the ground. And he's happily married and has a son. And so these are some of the incredible things that can stem out of these international partnerships we build. And so Brian leads our team in Uganda, and our team in America, the All We Are USA branch, is a group of excited and passionate and now patient volunteers located across the United States. So I'm based here in Raleigh, North Carolina. We have folks in Cincinnati, other parts of Ohio, and in other parts of the country. And we are all gainfully employed. We've just started our careers in the last 5-6 years. But this commitment to All We Are, to our Solarize Uganda Now program, and to the work we're doing in our mission is incredibly important to us. And so we dedicate time outside of these full-time jobs, outside of university for some of us, to further our mission in Uganda. And with this partnership with the pay team in Uganda, we've completed these 30 plus installations around the country. And so as an organization, we sat down recently and said, you know what, who are these types of leaders that we're becoming? When we look back several years from now on our organization, what were the core values that drove us forward? And I wanted to pause on this because you may be shocked to realize that everything didn't go my way or our way when we wanted it to. And so if you're watching this, or you're going to look at this later, and you're in high school, I'd encourage you to take a moment to think about these things. Perhaps take a screenshot of these things that we've realized were important in driving forward our organization. Things like patience, empathy, respect. You see there that diagram of when things get tough, is it resilience that brings us back up? And these things are especially important for any organization, but especially one like ours that focuses on how do we create important change outside of a day job. And so one thing that's not on here, we've learned this from our major partner, and that's the value of intergenerational dialogue. So as I mentioned in the beginning, Rotary is our major partner. And so starting out from the beginning with this computers project, I worked with my local Rotary Club in Findlay, Ohio. And then when I went off to the University of Cincinnati, I worked closely with Deborah Schultz and others in the club to found this project. This project really started out of an international project from the Rotary Club of Cincinnati. This is our specifically speaking on our work with solar in Uganda. So Rotary is incredible as it has taught us the best practices of international development and project implementation. But just as important, it's taught us the importance of this intergenerational dialogue. The path of life is a journey to wisdom. And I learned this early on from Rotary. So our organization has been focused on innovation and exciting technologies to make our work better, cheaper, more effective. But we've really focused on taking the time to reflect and being intentional about searching or seeking for this wisdom. And Deborah, as a longtime member of this club and past director, has been a shining light in that development for us and for many. And so we were lucky to have her leadership and wisdom early on that helped shape our program, got us our name of Solarize Uganda now, and much more. And so when we think of this intergenerational dialogue, it's very important for us to take the next step or maybe plan out the next few years. But it's been extremely important for us also when things don't go our way to shake off the losses and then continue to be laser focused on our goals as an organization. So specifically today, we want to talk about environmental justice and how this fits into the peace and justice narrative. And one of the things that I want to pause on is this concept of the man in the arena or the woman in the arena. And so as a 16-year-old high school student, I thought success was getting from the audience to the stage. But here sitting in front of you today, this morning, 11 years later, I realized that the reward was really going from a guest to a host. And so this concept of the man in the arena, for us, it's a willingness to fight for what is right and where it's needed the most. And so for us, that's our work in Uganda with our Solarize Uganda program. So what is environmental justice? Environmental justice is defined as a fair treatment and meaningful involvement of all people, regardless of race, color, national origin, or income, with respect to the development, implementation, and enforcement of environmental laws, regulations, and policies. And so for all of us, that could look like different things. For some of us, it looks like activism. It's policy work. It's protesting and making your voice heard by the leaders in your community. For us, environmental justice is action. It's going to the places that need it the most and creating change, being active in that. And so here in this slide, you can see a boarding school in rural Uganda. That photo on the left, unfortunately, is best cased for many schools. Some of them barely have these candles that you see here in the photos to study at night or early in the morning, provide security. And that photo on the left, you see, is a after photo of this same school after our organization has come in with our Rotary partners to provide access to electricity. You can see an incredible difference in these students' abilities to study, to learn, to question, to wonder, all of these important things for primary and secondary schools in Uganda. And you can see that happening there thanks to our program. It also looks like a health center in rural Uganda being able to provide better facilities to its patients. It's the ability to use solar refrigeration to store vaccines for longer. It's lights in these operating rooms and delivery rooms as a young mother gives birth to a baby. And so these are the things that we're focused on as an organization. And our focus on education, we believe it's more important than ever, perhaps, in Uganda, as over 50% of the population is under the age of 18. So what this means is Uganda has one of the youngest and most rapidly growing populations in the world. When Uganda received its independence from the British in the 1950s, the population was just over 5 million people. Fast forward to today, and the population is nearly 45 million people and expected to surpass 100 million by 2050. If you want to create tangible change in a country like this, you have to focus on education and solutions that impact school-aged children. And so the problem that we're solving is that unreliable power stunts education and growth. And when we talk about this concept of environmental justice, part of that is that grid power in Uganda costs 4 to 5 times the cost of what I pay for power from Duke Energy in Raleigh, North Carolina. And the reality is that not only is it unreliable and expensive, but in an incredibly large percent of the geographical region of the country, there's no access to the grid. And so people are left using kerosene lamps and candles, which are dangerous and expensive. So we believe in the concept that where there's power, there's development. And so our solution has been this SUN program, or Solarize Uganda Now, which provides access to LED lighting to boarding schools around the country, as well as lighting and solar refrigeration to health centers in Uganda. And so to talk about how we do it, we consider innovation and we consider wisdom and what we can learn from in terms of how our country or other countries in the world have developed. And so what you're looking at right now is a timeline of how telecommunications developed in America. So all of us today possibly have an iPhone or an Android phone in our pocket. But to go from that telegraph to that phone that you have in your pocket to today required an incredible amount of innovation and changes in technology that occurred over several hundreds of decades. And so if we contrast that with a country like Uganda, you'll see a country that in less than 20 years ago barely had access to any type of telecommunications technology. Fast forward to today, over 50% of the population has a cell phone in their home. And so lots of the infrastructure that's required to build out the telephone or the landline phone we have in our communities, a lot of that was leapfrogged. They went from no phone directly to that cell phone. Oftentimes, people that own a cell phone may not even have access to electricity in their home. So they certainly have advanced quite drastically. And so we considered, how does that growth help us come into a better future for Uganda with energy? And so if you think of electricity and how that's traditionally generated, it involves quite a bit of infrastructure. And so this is why when I made this trip to Uganda in 2011 and realized that my focus shouldn't be on computers, but perhaps on more basic access to energy, when we reached out to the local Duke Energy of Uganda and asked them, hey, are you expanding the grid to these rural communities? And the reality was, these companies don't have a business case to make that incredible capital expenditure feasible. And so lots of these communities are off grid and will continue to be off grid for many years. And so if we look at this traditional development of power with power plants, long transmission lines, distribution lines that reach to our communities, what we were looking for was a more cost-effective model. And that was to say, can we get rid of a lot of this infrastructure and expense and focus on a solution that would be standalone and much cheaper? And this is what led to us creating the Solarize Uganda Now program, where we do standalone solar installations onto a rooftop of a school. So to walk you through how this works, I'll give an example of a school that we electrified 2 years ago with support from the Rotary Club, Rotary Clubs in Cincinnati and in Ohio, and also here in Raleigh, North Carolina. So I mentioned the importance of intergenerational dialogue, but also talking to local communities. And we see that every day with our needs assessments. So our host partner club in the ground, the NATT Rotary Club of Kampala, they conduct a community needs assessment, thinking about, okay, how big are these schools? Do they have proper security? How can we positively impact them, whether it's this year or perhaps in the future? And with this analysis, they're selecting institutions most in need and that are ready for this type of deployment. After that, our team of engineers around the country design the systems. Our funds moved from Rotary to All We Are to Uganda, where we purchase components locally and call our local electrical team to get ready to work. And so these installations could take 4 days. Some of the larger ones could take longer. And this involves wiring, building a solar array, installing, and last but not least, certainly the most important, it's testing and training the local community on how the system works. We're very focused on sustainability thanks to our close partnership with Rotary, an organization that also focuses on sustainability in all they do. And we invest in the local community. We're buying local. All of the components are high quality American or European components bought under warranty locally, so that should there be any problem with the system while we're here in America, our local team can be dispatched with parts available in a warehouse to make repairs. We're focused on hiring this local team and having them be the face of our project. And then we're also focused on transactional value in our projects. And this is a belief that if our beneficiaries aren't our customers, we may never know if what we're providing is unhelpful. Unfortunately, in a lot of different places in the world, nonprofits have been coming in for decades and doing different projects. And sometimes we don't ask the question of how we might be helpful. And we give people things for free and they don't say, no, we don't want these free things. And they don't say, hey, we want to be financially involved in this. So we require these schools and health centers to pay a small quarterly payment that goes towards ensuring the sustainability of our program. In short, what we found is that when people pay a little bit for something, they treat it a whole lot better than if you give it to them for free. And so we believe that this cost sharing increases the value of our projects. And so our organization, we're focused on stewardship, which is another concept we learned through Rotary. It's that donors and supporters want to be hyper-focused on impact. And how do we do this with the lowest amount of overhead? So our organization puts 100% of public donations to charity. And as gainfully employed young professionals, this overhead expenses that are low for bank fees or wire transfers and so on, these expenses are covered by our members. And so our goals are 50 completed installations by 2022. We're excited about our progress, even through COVID, excited about completing hitting our target early. And so our next steps as an organization, it looks like continuing on this journey for environmental justice and seeing, can we provide this for every in-need school or health center in Uganda? And what does that look like for other countries? Thanks to the partnership we have with Rotary, we're able to duplicate this model in several other countries. And we would like to create a model of success that can be taken to other parts of the world. And so this is the mission that we're driving towards. And we really do believe that we will see a world where everyone has access to affordable and clean energy. And so thank you once again for the opportunity to speak to you today. And please follow along with what we're doing. You can see there some links to our social media. And if you're a high school student or if a teacher or someone listening to this presentation that wants to get in touch with me, feel free to send me an email. We would love to engage with different high schools to create All We Are clubs around the Cincinnati area or even in other parts of the country. If you're a teacher, if you're a supporter or anyone watching this that has any additional questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. And thank you once again.